9 months married, and she wanted half my fortune. No prenup, no warning, just I don't love you anymore. She had everything, mansion, Mercedes, yacht trips, but she wanted more. Then I discovered her boyfriend, the fake pregnancy, and her mother's 5 previous divorces worth $7 million. They thought they'd found their next victim. They were wrong. My name is Blake Fontaine. I'm 43 years old, and I own a piece of something millions of people only dream about, the Miami Thunder, our city's NBA franchise. Well, 7% of it anyway. That's 7%, combined with my commercial property investments across South Florida, and my stake in 3 luxury car dealerships, put my net worth somewhere north of $50 million. I'd build it all from the ground up, starting with a single used car lot in Hialeah 20 years ago, and grinding my way through every setback, every rejection, every deal that almost fell through. I met Amber Monroe at a charity gala at the Paris Art Museum. She was 29 then, working as an event coordinator for a high-end catering company. She had this effortless elegance, moving through the crowd in a black dress that probably cost more than most people's monthly rent. Auburn hair that caught the light just right, green eyes that seemed to see straight through the usual nonsense of small talk. When she approached me near the bar, I was impressed that she knew who I was without making it feel like she'd researched me. "Mr. Fontaine," Amber said, extending her hand with a smile that could light up a room. "I wanted to personally thank you for your contribution tonight. The Children's Hospital will be able to expand their cancer wing because of donors like you." Most women at those events wanted to talk about the team, ask for tickets, angle for an introduction to the players. Amber talked about the cause, about making a difference, about what real wealth should be used for. I was hooked. We dated for 8 months. Dinners at Zuma and Stubborn Seed, weekend trips to Key West on my boat, front row seats at Thunder games where she'd actually pay attention to the game instead of taking selfies. She quit her job after 6 months when I told her she didn't need to work those crazy hours anymore. I proposed on New Year's Eve in my waterfront estate in Coral Gables, with fireworks exploding over Biscayne Bay and a 10-carat diamond ring from Tiffany's. We got married 3 months later in a ceremony that cost more than most people's houses. The Biltmore Hotel, 400 guests, live orchestra, Dom Perignon flowing like water. My sister Amelia told me I was rushing things, that I barely knew Amber, that something felt off about how fast everything was moving. I told her she was jealous of my happiness. I wish to God I'd listened. The marriage lasted exactly 9 months and 12 days. We just gotten back from dinner at Sea Salt and Pepper, and Amber was unusually quiet during the drive home in my Range Rover. I figured she was tired. When we walked into the house, I headed to the kitchen to pour myself a scotch. "Blake, we need to talk," Amber said behind me, her voice flat and emotionless. I turned around, glass in hand. "What's wrong?" She didn't sit down, didn't soften the blow, didn't even pretend to be upset about what she was about to say. "I want a divorce," Amber stated, crossing her arms. "I don't love you anymore. I'm not happy. I want out." After a marriage that lasted less than a year, she said she wanted a divorce. I was stunned, standing there like an idiot with my scotch, trying to process words that made no sense. But looking at her cold expression, I realized something that would change everything. She expected me to roll over, to be the nice guy, to let her walk away with half of everything I'd built. What Amber didn't know was that I was about to surprise her in ways she never saw coming. The first 48 hours after Amber dropped the divorce bomb, I played it cool. I didn't yell, didn't beg, didn't ask her to reconsider. I just nodded, told her we'd figure it out like adults, and went about my business. She probably thought I was in shock, too stunned to react. The truth was, I was already 3 steps ahead. That first night, after she went to bed in the guest room, I sat in my home office and made a list. Not an emotional list of all the ways she'd hurt me. That would come later, probably with a bottle of bourbon. This was a tactical list. What did I need to protect? Who did I need to call? What moves did I need to make before she got her lawyers involved? At 7 the next morning, I called David Kaplan. David wasn't just any divorce attorney. He was the divorce attorney in Miami. If you were rich and your marriage was falling apart, David was the guy who made sure you stayed rich. He'd handled cases for athletes, executives, even a couple of celebrities who kept their splits out of the tabloids. His retainer alone was 50 grand, but he was worth every penny. "Blake," David answered on the second ring, his voice crisp and professional. "What can I do for you?" "My wife wants a divorce," I said, cutting straight to it. We've been married 9 months. No prenup. I need to protect my assets. There was a pause. Then David's tone shifted to all business. Come to my office this afternoon. 2 o'clock. Don't tell her where you're going. And don't discuss finances with her until we talk. Understood. I hung up and stared at my phone. The next call was harder. I dialed my sister Amelia's number, and she picked up on the first ring. Blake. Amelia's voice was cautious. This is early for you. You were right, I said, the words tasting like ash in my mouth. About Amber. About everything. There was a long silence on her end, and when she finally spoke, there was no satisfaction in her voice, just sadness. What happened? She wants a divorce. Came out of nowhere last night. We haven't even been married a year, Mel. My sister exhaled slowly. I'm sorry, Blake. I really am. But you need to listen to me now. Don't trust anything she says, and don't make any moves without a lawyer. Women like her don't just wake up and decide to leave. There's always a plan. I've got David Kaplan on retainer as of this afternoon. Good, Amelia said firmly. And Blake, call me if you need anything. I mean it. I don't care what time it is. After we hung up, I went through the motions of my morning routine. Shower, coffee, check the markets, reviewed emails from my property managers. Amber came downstairs around 9, dressed like she was heading to a spa day, yoga pants, designer athletic top, hair pulled back. She looked at me like I was a stranger. I'm going out for a while, Amber announced, grabbing her Birkin bag from the counter. Where? I asked, keeping my tone neutral. Does it matter? She shot back, a hint of annoyance in her voice. We're getting divorced, Blake. You don't get to interrogate me anymore. I took a sip of my coffee and smiled. You're right. Have a good day. She looked surprised by my response, maybe even a little disappointed that I wasn't putting up a fight. She left without another word, and I watched through the window as her white Mercedes pulled out of the driveway. The second she was gone, I grabbed my phone and called a number I'd hoped I'd never need. It rang 3 times before a gravelly voice answered. Callahan Investigations. I need surveillance on my wife, I said. Starting today. I want to know everywhere she goes, everyone she meets, and every conversation you can legally record. Money's no object. Address. The voice on the other end asked, all business. I gave him the details, and, just like that, the real game began. Amber thought she was going to blindside me and walk away with millions. She had no idea I was about to flip the script on her completely. David Kaplan's office was in a glass tower in Brick Hill, overlooking the Miami skyline. Everything about the place screamed success. Mahogany furniture, original art on the walls, a view that probably cost more per square foot than most people's apartments. When his assistant showed me into his office, David was already reviewing documents on his computer, his reading glasses perched on his nose. Blake, David said, standing up to shake my hand. He was 50, fit, with silver hair and the kind of confidence that came from winning cases most lawyers wouldn't touch. Sit down. Let's talk about your situation. I took the leather chair across from his desk. How bad is it? Without a prenup? It could be very bad, David said bluntly, removing his glasses. Florida is an equitable distribution state, which means the court divides marital assets fairly. Not necessarily 50-50, but fair based on various factors. You've been married 9 months. Everything acquired during the marriage is potentially on the table. What about what I had before we got married? I asked. That's separate property, but here's the catch. If it got commingled with marital funds, if she contributed to its increase in value, or if you put her name on anything, it becomes complicated. David leaned forward. Tell me everything. And I mean everything. Bank accounts, property, businesses, investments. I need to know what we're protecting. I spent the next hour laying it all out. The 7% stake in the Miami Thunder that was worth about $12 million. The 3 luxury car dealerships that generated $8 million a year in revenue. The commercial properties in Coral Gables and Miami Beach. The house in Coral Gables itself, worth $4 million. Investment accounts, retirement funds, the works. David took notes, occasionally asking questions, his expression never changing. When I finished, he sat back in his chair. First thing we do is freeze everything, David stated firmly. I'll file a motion to prevent her from accessing joint accounts or selling any assets. Second, we need to establish that most of your wealth is separate property acquired before the marriage. Third, and this is important, We need to know if there's another man. If she's been unfaithful, it won't give us grounds for divorce in Florida, but can impact alimony and division of assets if we prove she was planning this. I've already got someone on that, I said. Callahan Investigations started surveillance this morning. David smiled for the first time. Good. You're thinking like a businessman, not an emotional husband. That's going to save you millions. He paused. One more thing, Blake. Don't confront her about anything until we have proof. Let her think you're cooperating, that you're going to make this easy. The more comfortable she gets, the more mistakes she'll make. When I got home that afternoon, Amber's Mercedes was in the driveway. I found her in the kitchen. Making herself a salad like this was just another normal day. How was your day? I asked, keeping my voice neutral. Amber looked up, surprised I was being civil. Fine. I had lunch with some friends. That's good, I replied, opening the fridge to grab a water. Listen, I've been thinking about what you said. About the divorce. She stopped chopping vegetables, her expression guarded. And I don't want to fight, I said, delivering the lies smoothly. We're both adults. We should be able to handle this maturely, right? No lawyers destroying each other. No drama. Just a clean split. I could see the relief wash over her face. She'd expected me to fight, to beg, to make this difficult. Instead, I was giving her exactly what she wanted, or so she thought. I'm glad you're being reasonable about this, Amber said, a small smile playing at her lips. I was worried you'd make this ugly. Why would I? I shrugged. If you're not happy, you're not happy. I just want us both to move on with our lives. That night, I got a text from Callahan Investigations. Just an address in South Beach and a time, 2:47 p.m. The next message was a photo. Amber, walking into the W Hotel with a guy I'd never seen before. He looked younger than me, probably early 30s, athletic build, the kind of guy who spent more time at the gym than at work. The following morning, more photos came through. Amber and this guy having breakfast at a sidewalk cafe in Wynwood, holding hands across the table, laughing. Another photo showed them getting into his car, a leased BMW 4 Series, according to the report. Not exactly the caliber of vehicle Amber had gotten used to. I forwarded everything to David with a simple message. Found him. His response came back immediately. Perfect. Keep the evidence coming. Don't let her know we have anything. 3 days later, my investigator delivered a full report. The guy's name was Tyler Reed, 28 years old, worked as a personal trainer at an upscale gym in Coconut Grove, lived in a rented apartment in Brickell, drove a leased car, had about $43,000 in debt between student loans and credit cards. In other words, he was broke, and my wife was throwing away a $50 million marriage for him. I'd been married to Amber for less than a year, and she'd blindsided me with a divorce. I'd been stunned at first, sure, but that shock had transformed into something sharper, something focused. Now I was ready to surprise her right back, and she wasn't going to like it. The morning after I got Tyler Reed's full background report, I called David Kaplan. I need to move fast, I told David. What's our next step? We restructure everything, David replied without hesitation. Your business assets, your properties, your investment accounts. We need to establish clear documentation that these are separate properties or business entities that she has no claim to. How long will that take? If we move now before she files? 2, maybe 3 days. I've already got my team working on it. I met with David and his associates that afternoon. They'd brought in a forensic accountant named Patricia Doyle, a sharp woman in her 50s who specialized in high-net-worth divorces. She spread financial documents across the conference room table like a general planning a military campaign. Mr. Fontaine, Patricia began, adjusting her glasses. Your car dealerships are currently structured as LLCs, which is good. But your personal name is on the ownership documents. We need to transfer those to a holding company that predates your marriage. Can we do that legally? I asked. Absolutely, Patricia confirmed. You own these businesses before you met Amber. We're simply restructuring the ownership to reflect that these are business assets, not marital property. It's corporate reorganization, perfectly legal. David jumped in. The commercial properties are trickier. You bought 2 of them during the marriage, even though you used funds from before the marriage. We'll need documentation showing the source of funds and establishing that Amber contributed nothing to their acquisition or management. She didn't, I said firmly. She never worked a day during our marriage, never contributed a dollar to any business decision. Perfect, David said with a slight smile. That makes our case stronger. Over the next 3 days, we moved like a special ops team. The dealerships got transferred into a new holding company. The commercial properties got documented with paper trails showing the source of every dollar used to purchase them. My investment accounts got separated into premarital and postmarital funds. Even the house in Coral Gables got transferred into a family trust, with my sister Amelia as co-trustee, establishing it as a family asset rather than marital property. Meanwhile, Amber had no idea any of this was happening. She spent her days shopping, having long lunches, and sneaking off to meet Tyler. The surveillance photos kept coming. Hotel rooms, beaches, restaurants where she used my credit card to pay for their dates. She was getting sloppy, confident that I was going to roll over. On the 4th day, David called me into his office again. "We're ready," David announced, sliding a thick folder across his desk. "I'm filing a motion for divorce tomorrow, along with a complete asset disclosure showing that 94% of your net worth is separate property. We're also including the surveillance evidence of her affair." "What about alimony?" I asked. David's expression turned almost predatory. "Given the short duration of the marriage, her infidelity, and the fact that she contributed nothing to your wealth, I'm confident we can get the court to deny alimony entirely. She'll walk away with whatever personal items she brought into the marriage and nothing else." That night, I had dinner with my sister Amelia at Stubborn Seed in Miami Beach. She'd flown down from Atlanta when I told her things were moving fast. "How are you holding up?" Amelia asked, studying my face across the table. "Honestly, I'm fine," I said, and I meant it. I was hurt at first, but now I'm just focused on making sure she doesn't steal what I built. Amelia reached across and squeezed my hand. "I'm proud of you, Blake. A lot of men would have fallen apart or done something stupid. You're handling this the right way. I learned from the best," I said with a slight grin. "You told me to be smart, not emotional. I'm being smart." The next morning, David filed the papers. By noon, Amber had been served at the house. I wasn't there. David had advised me to stay away, let the process server do his job, and avoid any confrontation. My phone rang at 12:15. It was Amber, and she was screaming. "What the hell is this, Blake?" Amber's voice came through shrill and panicked. "You're suing me for divorce. You're claiming I'm having an affair. Are you?" I asked calmly. "That's not the point," she shouted. "You told me you weren't going to make this difficult." I lied. I said simply, "You wanted a divorce, Amber. You're getting one, just not the one you planned." I hung up before she could respond. And for the first time since this nightmare started, I smiled. She thought she had me figured out. She was about to learn just how wrong she'd been. The divorce proceedings moved faster than I expected. Amber hired an attorney, some hotshot from Fort Lauderdale named Gregory Winters, who specialized in protecting women's rights in divorce. The guy was all talk, constantly sending threatening letters about how his client deserved to be fairly compensated for emotional damages, and how I was being unreasonably aggressive. David Kaplan ate him alive in every motion. 2 weeks into the process, David called me into his office. His expression was different this time. Not satisfied, not confident, concerned. "We've got a problem," David said, sliding a document across his desk. I picked it up and read the header: "Petition for child support and custody." My stomach dropped. "She's claiming she's pregnant?" I asked, looking up at David. "We haven't slept together in over 2 months." "That's not what she's saying," David replied, his jaw tight. "According to her filing, she's 4 months pregnant. She's claiming the child is yours and demanding child support, medical expenses, and that you maintain her health insurance." I did the math in my head. 4 months ago, we were still together, still sharing a bed. It was possible, if the baby was actually mine. "I want a DNA test," I said immediately. "We'll demand one, but Florida law is tricky," David explained, leaning back in his chair. "If she's pregnant, we can't force a paternity test until after the baby is born. That's 5 months away. And in the meantime, if a judge believes there's a possibility the child is yours, you might be ordered to pay temporary support." "That's insane." "That's family court," David said grimly. "But here's what concerns me more: the timing. She's been seeing Tyler Reed for at least 2 months, probably longer based on the surveillance. If she's 4 months pregnant, there's a good chance that baby isn't yours." The words hit me like a punch to the gut. Not because I wanted a child with Amber. That ship had sailed the moment she asked for a divorce. But because if she was pregnant with Tyler's baby and trying to pass it off as mine, that was a whole new level of fraud. What do we do? I asked. David tapped his pen on the desk, thinking. We fight the support motion and demand a DNA test immediately after birth. In the meantime, we dig deeper into her relationship with Tyler. If we can prove they were together before she got pregnant, it raises reasonable doubt about paternity. I left David's office and called my investigator. I need everything on Tyler Reed and Amber's relationship. Phone records, hotel receipts, anything that shows when they started seeing each other. I'm on it, Callahan replied. Give me 3 days. That night, I sat in my home office staring at old photos from our wedding. Amber in her white dress, smiling like she meant those vows. Me, stupidly believing we were building something real. Had she been planning this even then? Had she gotten pregnant deliberately, knowing she could use a child as leverage? My phone buzzed. It was my sister Amelia calling from Atlanta. Blake, she said when I answered. I heard about the pregnancy claim. How are you holding up? Honestly, Mel, I don't know if I'm angrier about the possibility she's lying, or the possibility she's telling the truth and trying to trap me with a kid. Amelia was quiet for a moment. Do you think it's yours? The timeline works if it is, I admitted. But she's been with this trainer for months. It could be used just as easily. Then you fight for that DNA test, my sister said firmly. Don't let her manipulate you with this, Blake. If that baby is yours, you'll do the right thing. But if it's not, you need to prove it and walk away clean. 3 days later, Callahan delivered his report. Hotel receipts showed Amber and Tyler had been meeting at the W Hotel for nearly 4 months, which lined up exactly with when she claimed to have gotten pregnant. Credit card statements showed she'd bought pregnancy tests at a CVS near Tyler's apartment, not near her house. But the real bombshell was a text message Callahan had obtained through legal channels. It was from Amber to her mother, Patricia Monroe, sent 2 weeks before she asked me for a divorce. The message read, pregnant. Not sure whose it is. Might as well use it to my advantage either way. I stared at that text for a full minute, rage building in my chest. She didn't even know who the father was, and she was willing to pin it on me, the guy with millions, rather than Tyler, the broke personal trainer. I forwarded the text to David with one word, evidence. His response came back immediately. This changes everything. Emergency hearing tomorrow. Be ready. The next morning, David filed a motion to dismiss the child support petition based on fraud. He included the text message, the hotel receipts, and affidavits from Callahan's investigation showing Amber's affair timeline. By noon, Amber's lawyer had withdrawn the pregnancy claim entirely. By the end of the day, Gregory Winters had withdrawn from her case completely. David called me that evening. She just lost her biggest leverage. Without the baby angle and with proof of infidelity, she's got nothing. We're going to destroy her in court. For the first time since this nightmare started, I felt something close to justice. With the pregnancy fraud exposed, I thought we'd seen the worst of what Amber could throw at me. I was wrong. The real architect of this disaster wasn't Amber at all. It was her mother, Patricia Monroe. David Kaplan called me on a Friday afternoon with news that made everything click into place. I had my investigator dig into Patricia Monroe's background. David said over the phone, Blake, you need to sit down for this. I was already sitting in my office at the car dealership, reviewing sales numbers. What did you find? Patricia Monroe has been married 5 times, David explained, his voice grim. 5 times, Blake. Each marriage lasted between 18 months and 3 years. Each husband was wealthy, and each divorce left her with substantial settlements. He rattled off the details. Husband number 1, a construction company owner in Jacksonville. Divorced after 2 years. Patricia got $600,000. Husband number 2, a physician in Fort Myers. Divorced after 20 months. She got $900,000. Husband number 3, an investment banker in Orlando. Divorced after 3 years. $1.4 million. Husband number 4, a restaurant chain owner in Tampa. Divorced after 2 years. $2.1 million. Husband number 5, a retired airline pilot with real estate investments. Divorced after 18 months. $2.2 million. She's made $7.2 million from divorces, I said slowly, the full picture becoming clear. She's a professional. Exactly, David confirmed. And here's the kicker. I found emails between Patricia and Amber from before you two even got engaged. Patricia was coaching her, teaching her how to play you, how to gain your trust, when to make her move. Can you prove that? I asked, my hands gripping the desk. I can do better than prove it, David said. I can put Patricia Monroe on the stand and expose her entire operation. But I need your permission to go nuclear on this. It's going to get ugly, and it's going to be very public. Do it, I said without hesitation. I want everyone to know exactly what kind of people they are. David filed a motion to include Patricia Monroe as a witness in the divorce proceedings, citing evidence of fraud and conspiracy to defraud. Amber's new attorney, a public defender she'd been forced to hire after Gregory Winters quit, tried to block it, but the judge allowed it. The deposition happened in a conference room at David's office. Patricia Monroe showed up looking like she was heading to a country club, designer dress, expensive jewelry, professionally styled hair. She was 58 but could pass for 45, with the kind of maintained appearance that came from living off other people's money. David didn't waste time with pleasantries. He started with her marriage history, making her confirm each husband, each divorce, each settlement. Patricia tried to play it off as bad luck in love, but David systematically tore apart that narrative. Mrs. Monroe, David said, pulling out a printed email. Can you explain this message you sent to your daughter Amber 2 months before she married my client? I'll read it for the record. Remember what I taught you. Make him feel like the hero. Let him think it's all his idea. And when you're ready to leave, make sure you've documented everything. The right lawyer can get you half of everything he has. Patricia's face went pale. That's taken out of context. Really? David pressed. Because here's another one from 3 weeks after the wedding. How's it going with Blake? Have you started looking for your exit strategy yet? Remember, you need at least a year for it to look legitimate. The deposition went on for 3 hours. By the end, Patricia had invoked her Fifth Amendment right against self-incrimination 17 times. David had gotten everything on record, the pattern of marriages, the coaching emails, even bank statements showing Patricia had received $30,000 from Amber the month before she asked me for a divorce. Amber had paid her own mother to help her divorce me. That evening, I met with my sister Amelia at my house. She'd flown down from Atlanta to support me through the final stages of the divorce. I can't believe people like this exist, Amelia said, shaking her head. It's like they turned marriage into a business model. That's exactly what they did, I replied, pouring us both whiskey. Patricia raised Amber to be a con artist. This was never about love or building a life together. I was just a target. How are you feeling about all this? My sister asked gently. I thought about it for a moment. Honestly, I'm relieved. Relieved that I found out after 9 months instead of 9 years. Relieved that we didn't have kids. Relieved that I've got the resources to fight back. I took a sip of whiskey, and I'm grateful for you, Mel. You warned me, and I didn't listen. I'm sorry. Amelia reached over and squeezed my hand. You don't have to apologize, Blake. You're a good man who wanted to believe in someone. That's not a weakness. That's just being human. The trial date was set for 3 weeks out. David was confident we'd win, especially now with Patricia's deposition on record. Amber would walk away with nothing, just like she deserved. But more importantly, I'd walk away with something valuable, a hard lesson about trust, and the knowledge that I'd never let anyone play me like that again. The trial took place in a Miami-Dade County courtroom on an August morning. Judge Helen Rodriguez presided, a no-nonsense woman in her 60s with zero tolerance for fraud. Amber sat at the plaintiff's table looking nothing like the confident woman who'd asked me for a divorce. She'd lost weight, her expensive clothes replaced with something off the rack. Tyler had dumped her the moment the pregnancy fraud came out. David presented our case, methodically. The surveillance photos. The text message admitting she didn't know who the father was. The hotel receipts. Patricia Monroe's deposition. The emails coaching Amber on how to manipulate me. Amber's attorney tried to paint her as a victim. Judge Rodriguez wasn't buying it. Counselor, the judge interrupted. Your client deliberately deceived this courtroom with a false pregnancy claim and attempted to defraud the defendant of millions. Where exactly is the victim? The attorney had no response. Judge Rodriguez delivered her ruling the same day. The marriage was dissolved. Amber received $0 in settlement, 0 alimony, and was ordered to pay $50,000 toward my legal fees. The judge also referred Patricia Monroe's case to the state attorney for potential criminal charges. As we left the courtroom, Amber tried to approach me. David stepped between us. Blake, please, Amber said, her voice breaking. I'm sorry. My mother convinced me. Your mother didn't force you. I cut her off coldly. You made calculated decisions to lie, cheat, and steal. Now live with it. I walked away without looking back. Outside, my sister Amelia was waiting. How do you feel? She asked. Free, I said. For the first time in months, completely free. That evening, I met with the Miami Thunder ownership group. Some owners had expressed concerns about my focus during the divorce. I addressed them directly. Gentlemen, I went through hell these past months, but I handled it strategically, legally, decisively, the same way I handle business. My personal life is settled. I'm more focused than ever. The lead investor, Richard Foster, nodded. That's what we like to hear, Blake. 2 weeks later, David called with news. The state attorney just charged Patricia Monroe with felony fraud, David said. Pattern of marriage fraud spanning 20 years. She's looking at 5 to 10 years. Justice had a long memory. 4 months after the divorce, I stood on my yacht watching Miami sunset. The Thunder had won 3 straight games. My dealerships posted record sales, and my properties had new tenants. Life was good again. I'd started dating carefully, watching for warning signs I'd missed with Amber. The manufactured interest in wealth, rather than genuine interest in me as a person. Rosa, my housekeeper, had told me after the divorce that she'd known Amber was no good from the start. Why didn't you tell me? I'd asked. Would you have listened, Mr. Blake? She had a point. One evening at Mandolin Aegean Bistro, I ran into Tyler Reed with another older, expensively dressed woman. He was working the same charm routine. Our eyes met. Tyler's expression shifted to fear. He quickly left before finishing his meal. Good. Let him run. David called with the final update on Amber. She'd moved to Central Florida, back to her mother's hometown. Patricia was awaiting trial. Amber had a job as a waitress at a chain restaurant. From mansion to serving tables. The fall was complete. Do you feel vindicated? David asked. I feel at peace, I replied. Justice, not revenge. 8 months after the divorce, I was at a charity event at the Paris Art Museum, where I'd met Amber years ago. This time I was cautious. A woman approached me at the bar. Her name was Elena, a physician running a free clinic in Little Havana. She didn't know who I was, didn't care about the Thunder. She wanted to talk about her work, her community, making a real difference. We talked for 2 hours. She gave me her number on a clinic business card. Call me if you'd like coffee, Elena said simply. Just coffee, just conversation. I called the next day. We had coffee, then dinner, then more dinners. 3 months later, she still didn't care about my money. She paid for her own meals, insisted on splitting costs, declined every expensive gift. I like you for you, Blake, Elena said. Not for what you can buy me. Those words meant more than any I love you Amber had ever said. I'd survived the storm and found something real. 4 months after the trial, David Kaplan called with news that reopened a wound I thought had healed. Blake, we need to talk about Amber's baby, David said, his tone serious. She had a child 2 weeks ago. A girl. I felt my chest tighten. And her attorney contacted me. Amber wants to establish paternity and file for child support. She's claiming the baby is yours. We're doing a DNA test, I said immediately. Non-negotiable. David arranged it within a week. The process was simple. A cheek swab from me, a sample from a baby, sent to a certified lab. The wait for results felt like forever. When David called with the results, I was in my office at the Thunder's training facility. Blake, sit down, David said. The baby isn't yours. DNA confirms 0 paternity. The biological father is almost certainly Tyler Reed, based on the timeline. Relief washed over me, followed quickly by anger. She tried to trap me again, even after everything. She's desperate, David explained. Tyler won't acknowledge the child. She's broke, and she thought one more lie might work. I'm filing a motion to sanction her attorney for filing a frivolous paternity claim. This needs to stop. The judge agreed. Amber was sanctioned, her attorney withdrew, and I received a permanent court order preventing any future paternity claims. The door was finally completely closed, but something else came out during that process. Rosa, my housekeeper, approached me one evening while I was having dinner at home. Mr. Blake, Rosa said hesitantly, I need to tell you something. About Miss Amber. What is it, Rosa? Before you married, I saw her going through your office papers, Rosa confessed, wringing her hands. looking at your business documents, taking pictures with her phone. I should have told you, but I was afraid to lose my job. My jaw clenched. She was gathering information, even before the wedding. Rosa nodded. I'm so sorry, Mr. Blake. I should have said something. I wasn't angry at Rosa. She'd been put in an impossible position. But it confirmed what I'd suspected. Amber and Patricia had been planning this from the very beginning. Every moment of our relationship had been a calculated performance. I called David and told him about Rosa's revelation. He documented it, adding it to the growing file of evidence against Patricia for her upcoming criminal trial. 2 weeks later, I attended Patricia Monroe's criminal trial as a witness. The prosecution had built an overwhelming case. 5 marriages, $7.2 million in fraudulent settlements, emails coaching Amber, and now Rosa's testimony about premarital espionage. Patricia's defense attorney tried to paint her as a woman who'd simply had bad luck in relationships. The prosecutor destroyed that narrative with a timeline showing the calculated pattern. Target wealthy men, marry quickly, exit strategically, repeat. The jury deliberated for 4 hours. Guilty on all counts of fraud and conspiracy. At sentencing, Patricia received 8 years in federal prison and was ordered to pay restitution to all 5 ex-husbands. As the marshals led her away, she looked at me with pure hatred. You think you've won, Patricia hissed. But Amber will find another man, and this will all start over. Not this time, I replied calmly. Every court record, every news article, every piece of evidence is public now. Anyone who searches her name will know exactly what she is. You didn't just fail. You exposed your entire operation. Patricia's face went pale as the reality hit her. She'd spent 20 years perfecting her scam, and in trying to target me, she destroyed it completely. Outside the courthouse, a reporter asked me how I felt about the verdict. I feel like justice was finally served, I said. Not just for me, but for every man Patricia and Amber ever targeted, and for every man they won't be able to target in the future. That night, I had dinner with Elena at her favorite Cuban restaurant in Little Havana. We've been dating for 5 months now, taking it slow, building something real. How are you feeling after today? Elena asked, reaching across the table to take my hand. Lighter, I said honestly. Like I can finally close that chapter and move forward. She smiled. Good, because I was hoping we could talk about the future. Our future. For the first time in over a year, talking about the future didn't scare me. It excited me. 14 months after Amber asked for a divorce, I found myself back at the Paris Art Museum for another charity gala. The same place where this nightmare had started. But this time, I wasn't alone. Elena was by my side, elegant in a simple navy dress, talking animatedly with other doctors about expanding free clinic services across Miami. The Thunder had just made the playoffs for the first time in 5 years. My dealerships were expanding into Fort Lauderdale. My commercial properties were fully leased with waiting lists. Everything I protected during the divorce was now thriving. My sister Amelia had flown down from Atlanta for the event. She pulled me aside during the cocktail hour. You look happy, Blake, she said, studying my face. Really happy. I am, I replied. For the first time in a long time, everything feels right. Elena's good for you, Amelia observed. She's real, genuine. Nothing like. Don't even say her name tonight. I interrupted with a slight smile. That's over. Completely over. Later that evening, I got an unexpected call from David Kaplan. I stepped out onto the museum's terrace to take it. Blake, I thought you want to know, David said. Amber left Florida, moved to Texas with a baby. She's using her maiden name now, Monroe. She deleted all her social media. Good, I said simply. The farther away, the better. There's more, David continued. 3 women have reached out to me in the past month. They've all encountered Patricia or Amber's tactics, either from them directly years ago, or from other women using the same playbook. They want to file a class action lawsuit and use our case as precedent. Do it, I said without hesitation. Help them. If we can stop this pattern, we should. When I returned inside, Elena was waiting with 2 glasses of champagne. Everything okay? She asked. Everything's perfect, I said, taking the glass. Just closing some old doors. We toasted, and I looked around the room. The same venue where I'd met Amber, where I'd been charmed and deceived. But tonight, it felt different. Tonight, it was just a beautiful space full of good people doing good work. A year ago, I'd been sitting in my house, stunned, listening to Amber demand a divorce after less than a year of marriage. She thought she was going to surprise me, to walk away with millions while I stood there helpless. Instead, I'd surprised her. I'd fought back with strategy, evidence, and the law. I'd protected everything I'd built, and I'd exposed an operation that had been destroying men's lives for 2 decades. The divorce had cost me about $300,000 in legal fees, a fraction of what Amber had tried to take. Patricia was in prison. Amber was hiding in another state with a baby that wasn't mine, working minimum wage jobs, living the consequences of her choices. And me? I was standing in a museum with a brilliant, compassionate woman who loved me for who I was, not what I had. I had my businesses, my team, my family, and my integrity intact. As the evening wound down, Elena and I stood on the terrace overlooking Biscayne Bay. The Miami skyline glittered against the dark water, and a warm breeze carried the scent of salt air. "What are you thinking about?" Elena asked, leaning against me. "How different my life looks now compared to a year ago," I said. "How close I came to losing everything, and how grateful I am that I didn't." Elena squeezed my hand. "You didn't just survive, Blake. You won. Not by being bitter or vengeful, but by being smart and principled. That's the man I fell for." I kissed her forehead, feeling something I hadn't felt in a long time: complete peace. Amber had tried to destroy me. Instead, she taught me valuable lessons about trust, about protecting what matters, and about recognizing the difference between performance and authenticity. I'd come out stronger, wiser, and with someone who actually deserved my trust. That wasn't just victory. That was transformation. And as I stood there with Elena, looking out at the city I'd built my fortune in, I knew one thing for certain: the best chapters of my life were still ahead of me.